Hello and welcome to this eSchool News webcast. My name is Andrew Barber. I'm a senior contributing editor here at eSchool News, and it's my privilege to introduce today's presentation, which is sponsored by Fuel Education, and it's titled How to Implement Project-Based Learning in a Blended Model, 6 Best Practices for Student Success. Now, before I hand things over to our speakers for today, I want to take a few moments to highlight just a couple of items. First, please ask questions. Don't feel as if you have to wait until the end. At any time during the presentation, if you have a question, just type it into that Q&A box on your console and hit the submit button. I expect that we'll have about 15 minutes or so at the end when our speakers can address some of those questions. And then if you have any technical issues during the webinar, please use that same Q&A panel, and we'll try to resolve the problem and get an answer back to you as soon as possible. We also have a chat function, which can be launched via that blue group chat icon down at the bottom of your screen. Please use the chat to talk among yourselves, and you can also use it to alert me to technical issues that way as well. Use the Q&A or the chat, it doesn't matter. But please don't use the chat function to ask our speakers questions. They simply aren't going to have time to monitor the chats while they give their presentation. So once again, if you have a question, please use the Q&A panel instead. And finally, today's event will be recorded, so you don't have to worry about taking notes. In a couple of days, we'll send out an email to everyone attending the event that will contain a link to the recorded event, and you'll also be able to download a PDF of the presentation from that same email. Now, with that out of the way, I want to introduce our first speaker, Molly Hone, who will in turn introduce today's other speaker. Now, Molly Hone is an education consultant with Fuel Education, and over the course of her career, Molly's been a classroom high school teacher, an online instructor, AP coordinator, district-level curriculum specialist, online content developer, and an educational consultant in the digital space. Most recently, she has enjoyed the privilege of helping individual schools and districts shape policy and implement blended and online programs. Welcome, Molly. It's a real pleasure to have you here today. Why don't you get us started?
Sure. Thank you so much, and thanks to everyone for being here and taking some time out of your day today to learn about project-based learning in the blended environment. And I am joined by Jessica Spallino, co-founder and CEO of Method Schools in California, and she will be sharing with us today some wonderful tips, examples, data, and success stories from her schools in California. Before I hand it over to Jessica, I just would like to give a brief overview of Fuel Education and what we provide. Just some quick fast facts about our organization. We are committed to blended and online learning, and we serve school districts pre-K through high school in all 50 states and the District of Columbia, and we are privileged to have partnered with more than 2,000 school districts and trained more than 5,000 teachers. As I mentioned, our main area of focus is really blended learning. We have a wonderful team of experts that help support our partners throughout the country. We offer professional development and online and blended learning, consulting services, as well as participation in educational events like our Blended Learning Leadership Forum, which I'll speak about at the end of the session as well. We'll also have wonderful resources to support your efforts in blended learning, some of which will be available at the end of the session as well. Now, without further ado, I will hand it over to our guest speaker, Jessica, to share with us her findings from Method Schools.
Great, thank you, Molly. Thanks everybody for being here. Again, my name is Jessica Spallino. I am the co-founder, CEO, and director of Method Schools. We are located throughout Southern California. We are on our third year of operation at one site and our second year of operation at our second site. We launched initially back in August of 2014. We are located, we have a site in Murrieta, California, and in Arcadia, California. Those are both in the Southern California region. We serve grades kindergarten through 12th, and we have a variety of models, most of which I will refer to and explain a little throughout this presentation. But those include an online implementation and then a blended and project-based implementation and different variations within those. Approximately right now, we are serving about 200 students in our year-round program. We operate on a variety of tracks, which is a whole separate conversation, but what that enables us to do as a charter school is offer a variety of programs that start and end at different times throughout our school year. So we also have a very high enrolled summer program, or what we call a Track 1 program that operates with students in the thousands. But for our year-round program, which I will mostly speak to today, that is about 200 students. We are classified as an independent study charter school, and we are an independent school as well. So we are governed by our own board and manage all of our business side of things as well. Approximately, we're at about 35% free and reduced lunch. We have a wide variety of students demographically. So pretty diverse program that we operate. I wanted to start with just a couple of performance data points to give you an idea of what we're trying to tackle as an organization, data-wise. Where we are an organization whose vision does not align to just one form of assessment. We try not to specifically teach to a test, but we are always trying to find ways to improve student performance. And we absolutely are starting to see some results with some of our instructional content and data-driven practices. So this year, upon the retrieval of our SBAC results, we were able to calculate approximately about a 20% improvement overall on our reading and math test results from the 14-15 school year. So we are very excited about that, to start seeing some progress there. I know that that is a new assessment for all of us. We still have a long ways to go as far as mastery and preparation for that test. But we think some of our practices and as far as experiential learning and project-based learning, in addition to our data-driven approach, that it's starting to impact those overall scores. Additionally, which I will go into this in far more detail, we have an internal diagnostic assessment tool that administers diagnostic assessment in addition to a benchmark assessment, which we can administer as many times throughout the year as we'd like. And so we really rely on this data more than any other data that's available to us. Every student it takes this assessment, and it provides a very, very personalized path for each student, which I will get into in more detail. So for our program where students are primarily on site, we have developed three main components to this program. And I'd like to break it down into three because they all work together. The first is our data-driven approach, where we don't like to live by a test, but we absolutely feel that the newest programs, curriculum-wise and assessment-wise, can deliver pretty powerful data, real-life data on a daily basis. So we are utilizing those tools as much as we can to drive a personalized path for each student. So every student that enrolls takes this diagnostic assessment, and then we administer the same assessment quarterly. And what this enables us to do is personalize their curriculum and their instruction. And we apply interventions such as specialized curriculum paths and what we call FDI, which is focused direct instruction, which I will get into a little later. The second main component of our program is our online content. we used a very, very rigorous screening process, and I've been working with online content for nearly 15 years, and we are very familiar with all of the platforms out there. So we have developed a pretty rigorous screening process on our online content. We have found that the content we are currently using is highly rigorous. It's aligned to the standards. It includes a variety of modalities, and it seems to be working as the third part of our three main components to our program. The third thing is project-based learning. So I know this is a term everybody's hearing everywhere, and maybe it's overused, possibly. But we are continuing to find the best ways to implement project-based learning, and I'll go into that in a little more detail as well. So I'd like to first cover the first component of our program, which is the data-driven question. So every student that enrolls takes our diagnostic assessment, and this initial assessment upon enrollment provides us with three key tools to use for each student. The first is it helps us with content placement. So a sixth grade student may come in and be performing at a fourth or maybe even third grade level. So this helps us with how to place them appropriately, and I'll get into that in a little more detail on the next slide. Additionally, when we administer this diagnostic assessment tool 4 times a year, sometimes more, it helps us chart growth between assessments to ensure that the interventions and the instructional practices we are using are effective. If upon a second assessment we are not seeing the growth that we are expecting, and we absolutely are given that opportunity then to modify what we've been doing instructionally, modify the interventions we've been using. So it gives us an opportunity to continue to refine our instructional program on an ongoing basis, which is pretty powerful. And then additionally, the assessment tool provides each student with a personalized instructional plan. We highly utilize these, and they kind of chart a data-driven path for that student for the entire semester year and throughout the entire school year. So we'll go into that in a little more detail as well. So upon enrollment, as I said, every student who enrolls takes that diagnostic assessment, and then we administer those quarterly. What that does then is allows each student to be placed in content that matches where they are at instructionally. What this avoids is placing a student in a course where they've already mastered everything in that course and thus wasting a lot of time. It also prevents us from putting the student in a course that is far above their instructional level, and all they end up doing is struggling. So our approach, and we find it to be a very key approach, is that every student that enrolls and takes that assessment, the first and very critical item is to get them placed in an instructional, where they're at instructionally. So what happens is if students do come in as the one I previously mentioned, say if a sixth grade student comes in and they're assessing at about a third or fourth grade level, we are definitely faced with the dilemma of, do we place the student in sixth grade curriculum or do we place the student in fourth grade curriculum? Now, a student in sixth grade who's placed in sixth grade, or a sixth grade student who's placed in, who's performing at fourth grade and placed in sixth grade is going to be struggling immensely. So what we try to do is work very closely with the student's parent and highly qualified teacher and kind of break down that data and try to come to an agreement as to where that student will be placed, that he or she will be at their instructional level, so that they are challenged just enough to the point where they can handle it, and they're able to build those fundamental skills that they were missing from whatever school they were at previously, and they're able to build, and the goal is to absolutely get them to the grade level that they are supposed to be at. Our position is that if we are placing students in a grade level or a course that's only based on their age and the grade level they are supposed to be in, that's not always the right answer, we have found. We have found that many come to us with deficiencies in some fundamental skills. And the only way to get them to master those skills and to eventually get to their grade level standard is by learning those skills even if they are below grade level. So our instructional level philosophy has proven to show significant growth and definitely help students get to that ultimate goal of being at their grade level, instructional level. What we also do upon the completion of the initial diagnostic assessment and each quarterly assessment is based on the assessment results. There is the tool generates a report that explains all of the and highlights all of the standard strands the student has mastered, and additionally the standard strands that the student has not mastered. And so what we do is create plans for that student throughout that quarter to get personalized instructional sessions that go over those strands that were not mastered. And so what we do is our qualified teachers find as many students, which is never over 8 students, that have not mastered the same strand. So for example, say there are a group of 6 students that did not master multiplication of fractions. Those 6 students will be pulled out throughout the day and will receive instructional sessions on that specific strand. So we pull them out in small groups based on common deficiencies, and that happens throughout the day, every day of the week. It can happen for each student multiple of times each day. And then even students that are performing above grade level, they all have areas or strands that they need to master or get additional practice on. So all of our students are pulled out throughout the day for various sessions of that focused direct instruction. So the ongoing regular assessments have become an incredibly powerful part of our program. So it definitely will, when we do the quarterly assessments, that gives us fresh data every quarter on what's been working and what hasn't. And if the students still aren't mastering those strands that we delivered at the ION and that we reassess them on, because what we will do is upon a focused direct instruction session on a specific strand, we will administer a benchmark assessment and see if they've mastered that strand. If we're still not seeing increases in the mastery of those strands, then that student may get a one-on-one tutoring session or may get pulled out for a one-on-one here or there, or may even be provided with a variety of supplemental tools, even potentially within the online platform or something that we use outside of the online platform. So it just helps us continue to refine that student's path and be sure that we are continuing to apply interventions where needed. It definitely helps us chart each student's growth throughout the year. So if when we do our quarterly assessments, if we see halfway through the year that a student hasn't grown at least half of the content throughout the year, half of the grade level, then we know something isn't working, and that's where we will get creative and utilize additional interventions as part of our RTI program. So we have and utilize a pretty comprehensive response to intervention program, and it all starts with the data. So when we get this initial data, that's how we know where the strands are, and then that's where we will apply different interventions based on where they land. So here is our standard RTI pyramid. And so within Tier 1, as many of you may know, our general education program, so that would include our assessment tool combined with our online curriculum, combined with our project-based learning, combined with our focused direct instruction and common interventions. That really should be successfully serving about 75 to 85% of our students, and we're finding that is the case. When you look at Tier 2, that is where some of our at-risk students appear, and that should be ideally about 10 to 15% of our students. So that's where our standard, take the assessment, get placed in the right curriculum, here's some FDI sessions, projects, and so forth. That's when that standard format is not working. And that is for about, and should be for about 10 to 15% of a student population. We are finding that to be in alignment with ours. So that is where we would pull maybe additional outside resources to help the student, maybe some intervention resources such as an additional online program. We may administer further benchmark assessments at Tier 2. There's a variety of things that we will use at Tier 2. Tier 3 is and should be about 5 to 10% of a student population, and that is where we mostly find our special ed students who are on an IEP. So that is where we absolutely refine our delivery of instruction and content for that student, but likely they have additional services that are required per their IEP, which could be RSP time or speech time or any of those types of services. So this is kind of our general RTI pyramid, and this is kind of our guideline, and we do regularly assess to be sure that, you know, our general education curriculum program is successfully serving about 75 to 85% of our students. When we find that it is not, that's when we know that our general education program needs to be refined and tweaked. So we're constantly kind of watching the data and watching where refinements need to be made. On to the second component of our program, which is our online content. Our online content is the kind of the engine of sorts of our program, where that is where the standard-based content is delivered. We're very knowledgeable and researched in this area. We have a lot of experience with a lot of vendors. We try to stay up on what the latest tools that these vendors are providing. We have been happy with the providers that we have selected and that we've continued to use. We allow all of our teachers to be a part of that review process and screening process. I do know that there are many programs that create their own curriculum, and whereas we do create some of our own courses and utilize some of our own developed curriculum, at this phase in the development of our organization, we don't have the time, resources at all to be developing a comprehensive course list of ourselves. So we like to be able to put our trust elsewhere. To a vendor that is, you know, keeping the online content updated, keeping it rigorous, keeping it as innovative, and utilizing the best tools available, and just keeping it aligned to the latest standards. So at this phase in our development, we feel very fortunate to be able to trust a vendor to be able to do all that for us. I would say one of the strengths of the program we currently use, and in comparison to other programs I have found, is that the variety of modalities, I think, is an important element to online platforms today. I think there are many out there that have gotten their content aligned to the standards, but they follow a pretty standard or traditional textbook model within their online platform, where it's chunked content and a quiz, chunked content and a quiz, and then there's a test. And it almost kind of feels like a textbook that's just on your computer screen, where we have found strength in what we use at Fuel Ed to that it utilizes a variety of modalities. So any course that a student goes into, there's always a different activity or a different reinforcement activity or lesson each time they go through. So they kind of don't know what to expect next, and that's kind of the strength. They may do a drag and drop activity, they may do a reading, they may do a PowerPoint, they may watch a video. It's always something different to reinforce concepts, and we've found that to keep them very engaged, and that has definitely been a strength, I believe. The curriculum also is powerful when it can provide extension activities, which a lot of this curriculum does, where students are able to make real-life connections from the content that they are reading and digesting and taking assessments on and applying that to real life. And so when they have the opportunity to do that in the online platform, it certainly puts them in a great position for preparing for project-based learning. And in some of the creation of our projects, we may even look at extension activities within the online platform for ideas on projects. So it's a great bridge between the online content and project-based learning on those extension activities, and we've found those to be very engaging and effective for students. Additionally, the online platform is very flexible, and so if a student is taking a diagnostic assessment 4 times a year, we may move their courses upon the completion of a second assessment, the second quarter assessment, and the online platform makes that a very easy process. So it doesn't involve a lot of materials. There isn't shipping of materials on the most part. So we've found that to be pretty flexible and convenient for a right-sizing approach based on assessment results. Additionally, every online provider should have this. The one we currently use does. But as part of the RTI program, it's very important that our teachers and the students' parents are able to go into the platform and absolutely see where the student is in that course. So what is their current grade? How are they progressing? What have they completed? What have they not completed? What areas are they struggling in? How long were they logged in each day? Those kind of reports have become kind of a necessity at this point. And so I feel that is a really important part of the online content. It enables schools to not have to mess so much with that and be able to spend more time on instructional practices, interactive learning, collaborative learning, project-based learning, focused direct instruction. It kind of frees us up to spend more time there than tracking little details. So the online content definitely provides that for us, and we've found that to be very powerful, not only for ourselves, but for our students and for their parents as well. Very often, a parent will just let us know how much they appreciate the ability to be able to go in at any time and see where their child is at. So very powerful. It also helps we compare not only the diagnostic assessment results, but the assessment results, their performance on assessments in the online content. So we match those 2 data points to be able to refine our FDI sessions. So if a student continues to struggle on, again, multiplication of fractions in the online platform, then we absolutely know that that's when we need to spend some more time in our FDI session. So it just gives us a second layer of data that we find to be pretty powerful. And again, those extended learning opportunities. So if a student has been placed in a lower grade level of sorts to be at their instructional level, if they start mastering these strands and they're progressing in an effective way, then we are able to give them further opportunities within the online platform to move ahead. So the platform allows that on a very seamless basis, and we've found that to be very flexible, and it has kind of helped with our data-driven approach. The third component is project-based learning. So that's the third component of our program. As I'm sure most of you know, projects reinforce those 21st learning skills. I think we're not just doing projects because they're fun, but we're also doing them because students are learning some pretty powerful things for this day and age. So they're learning how to problem solve and critical think, synthesize the endless amounts of information that they have access to, reflecting on all of that and then presenting. So this picture here is at one of our sites, and these students had a 5-week, maybe 6-week project where they wrote their own book and illustrated it as well, and then ended up binding it, and then we had a night where they presented and read their book to the public, to the community. Just one of the examples of some of our projects. We have found that writing is something our students need lots and lots and lots of practice on. So this is a project that we have found to be pretty pretty not only enjoyable and engaging for the kids, but impactful and effective with their writing skills. We run a couple of types of projects. So we have what we call long run or long term and short run or short term projects. So the long term projects are the idea of groups of kids working together, and they may run for a longer time. Some may even run for half of a semester. And then usually there is an exhibition or sharing to the public of sorts. So the writing the book is an example of more of a long-term project. Last year we had a Roaring 20s dinner where the students got together and learned about the 1920s, and they each had different components of the 1920s that they learned about. And the culminating project for that was they prepared and fed dinner to the entire Method community, and they dressed in 1920s costume and shared what they learned about the 1920s. That's more of a long-term project. What we're trying to offer more of at this time are more short-term projects in addition to the long-term. And the short-term projects are really have a high content-driven focus to them. So where a student may be in an earth science course and they're learning about plate tectonics, we are trying to provide more time off of the just standard online content and allow them and enable them and empower them to go and do some applications to certain concepts and skills that are either traditionally difficult and or that the students are very interested in. So say a student is interested in plate tectonics, we'd love for that student to have the opportunity to go and research that a little bit and maybe even try an application of sorts that helps them understand the concept, the underlying scientific concept underneath plate tectonics. So we've been trying to work on developing more of those that often serve as extensions of the online content, and then also provide students the opportunity to voice their opinion around areas that are most interesting to them and allow them the opportunity to do short-run, short-term projects or slash applications that help them take some of those critical key concepts to the next level for kind of a deeper understanding and retention, and then of course for their enjoyment. So the more enjoyable it is and engaging it is for them, the more they're going to learn. So that's been kind of an area where we're trying to expand. And again, what we have found is most students who are able to extend some of their learning that way, the retention is much, much higher. So that's what we found with the projects. We have also just the overall culture that project-based learning can generate within a school is pretty powerful. When you can really put it put the students in the driver's seat on some of these projects, and what you find is often pretty magical. They are beyond excited. The level of skills that they are learning is beyond anything they're going to learn from a textbook, we have found, or even from online content. When they are able to make their own decisions around learning, where they're able to rely on each other for learning, and they're able to problem solve and do those things independent of us adults telling them how and what to do. We found that to be incredibly empowering, and it just generates this excitement for learning, doing, collaborating, problem solving in a way I've never seen before. This picture here is that we held the middle school students for this one. They held a kind of a fair of sorts, and they developed different stations of games that you could go and play at their fair. And so they developed this entire game with our co-founder in the cardboard boxes that they built, and you could go and try to shoot the co-founder or whoever was brave enough to put the cardboard boxes on and try to hit the target. And this is all completely developed by students. The science and math behind building it was there, so that you're always aligning it to as much content as you can.
but the level of fun and excitement you can't deny. So the combination of the two make it a pretty powerful third component of our program. And we've found the three together seem to address what we, at least where we're at right now in the development of our educational program, we find those three really address all the parts that we are interested in addressing for students today. So a couple of our program options. The one I've mostly described is what we call our iRotate. So it's primarily for students in grades 3 through 8th grade, and they have the option of coming on site 2, 3, 4 days a week, and I'd say 95% of those students come on 4 days a week. So they come on Monday through Thursday. They have a traditional school day that's built within where they're experiencing those three components of our program. And then Fridays, since we are independent study, Fridays, those 3 through 8th grade students, they work from home with their learning coach, and that's where they will work in their online curriculum and try to catch up either on that, excuse me, or on projects or what have you. And that's kind of how that works for the iRotate. As far as the second option, which we call iFlex, that's your standard kind of online program, but we do still offer a time on site. So that's where students, it can be students K through 8, but most of the students who opt for the iFlex are the 9 through 12 students. That is a very flexible option for high school students where they're able to work in 3 classes at a time for 9 weeks, and that gets them through the required credits per year. Per year. And then they have the option, we've reserved Fridays at each site for those students to be on site for the full day, to work together, to work on things, to just come into the computer lab, to meet with their teachers, what have you. Throughout the week, though, they also have access to their teachers. If they need instructional support, they're able to get that. That communication is on a daily basis. But essentially that is what the iFlex is more of that independent study online program. But they do still attend and utilize our site and certainly our instructional support throughout the week and certainly on Fridays. I believe that about wraps up what I have to share at this point. I believe, Molly, I will hand it over to you. Great. Thanks so much, Jessica. And you have such a wonderful program there, and we've had a lot of questions popping up during the Q&A throughout your presentation. So we'll take this time to address several of the questions. If we're not able to get to your specific question during the session, don't worry. We will certainly take note of all the questions and respond. To make sure you get the information that you need. So, Jessica, we've had many questions about the different facets of your program. So one of the questions that we had was about the project specifically and whether or not they integrate core subject areas or if they do additional information. So if you could speak to that a little bit, that would be great.
Yeah, so our projects are a cornucopia of projects, and many serve different purposes. In our social studies content, I would say 80% of what we do for social studies is through projects. We have found projects to be one of the best modalities for that subject area because a lot of that content is research-based, so students are able to pinpoint some topics and then do a lot of research in that area. You know, a lot of the interview techniques and role-playing techniques that complement that subject area of social studies well has worked. So for social studies, we use a lot of it. Science, we are expanding that, and we have found that, you know, even though the students are getting their online content in science, we have found that really where the student really retains critical key concepts is through application. So what we try to do is a couple of things. We try to do long-term projects for science, so a student can be working on a project almost through the whole semester potentially, in addition to what they're getting in their content. But what we also try to do are find key areas within the content that either students struggle with or that students find very, very exciting. And we try to offer smaller breakout sessions of that science throughout the week to allow them to apply some of what they're learning in the online content. So we kind of do both. And then with every project, especially the long term, we try to integrate all subject areas within them. So we try to have a language arts component to it where they're doing some research and inquiry, and they're definitely writing. And part of our Smart Balanced assessment results identified research and inquiry and writing as our two critical areas for growth. So we try to make sure that's integrated in any long-term project. Always math, wherever we can find students to have the opportunity to apply math to any project, we do that as well. So I'd say it's definitely something we're always trying to align to. Projects can absolutely get, I have found in my experience, if you're not careful and keep it very content and subject area focused, it can become a social arts and crafts event if you're not careful. So where there should be time, obviously, for that, we do try to keep pretty regimented and aligned to content and to subject areas as often as we can.
Sure, great. Thanks so much. And kind of as a follow-up to that, how do you work with those instructors who say that project-based learning simply takes too much time?
Well, you know, and for us, sometimes it can be. I think sometimes it can be a push and pull thing. We do provide them with prep time. We just had, because we're independent study, one of our Fridays, we had it on the calendar for the school year calendar. We have a few days off each year where they all get together from both sites and share project ideas. Now being on our third year, they're able to kind of recycle some ideas and refine them, but then also come up with new ones. So we try to provide opportunities for collaborative work amongst the teachers, and just with it at each site to have time at the end of the day to refine. As much resistance as that might be there at times, there also is that we have found that the students enjoy it so much, and when you're using online content, you absolutely need to diversify, otherwise the student's just staring at a screen all day, and that doesn't feel like you're successfully serving the student at all. So it's gotten to the point where our teachers are actually refreshed by it. They love to be doing something different with the kids. They love the excitement they see coming from the kids, so we've found that to be a motivator as well. But I do think the key is to, for us, we kind of started with those with some short-term projects where they're able to look at the content and maybe just use the content as a base and then provide some sort of a short-term application project. And we kind of started with that, and you know, I definitely always encourage just to keep trying. Every project is a process. It's an absolute process, and if it's not changing every day, every week, then it's probably not a good project. So it's an organic process. I mean, plans should be there, and the overall outcome, it should always be aligned to that, and that should always come back to the content and to the standards and all of that. But projects can definitely develop a life of their own, and that's usually when you know it's a good one.
Absolutely. And so with that, we had some questions about some of the assessment types that you mentioned, the formative assessments and others, and also in regards to that, how you administer those assessments. For example, in the iFlex model, do you have a building where the students have to come in to complete their testing? Is that done remotely?
Yeah, so we, almost all students come to the site to take it. It takes about, I'd say about 35 minutes per subject area, and they take it in reading and in math. If an iFlex student cannot get to our site, then we thoroughly discuss it with the learning coach, the parent, and request that the parent be with the student while the student's completing it. The thing about results on tests is, I mean, I've had a couple of students in 4th grade take it and score, you know, at 12th grade. And, you know, it causes you to pause and maybe say, let's give the student a week and have them retake it. Or retake it right away just to be sure. that test authenticity is there. Usually we have, in the scenario where they cannot get on site, we have the parent agree that they will oversee it. And then we will absolutely review for any testing anomalies or question marks that it may generate for us. And we never hesitate to have them retake it. We also follow up with, oral assessments with these students. So as soon as we're meeting with them and have contact with them, it's very easy when you have a one-on-one scenario with the student to get an idea of where they're at academically. Certainly not in one meeting, but we definitely have students do a quick little writing sample for us or do a couple of math problems for us right then and there, just to be sure that the data is matching what the student can actually do. So there are some things that we do to try to be sure that that is all accurate. And if for some reason something went awry the first test, the second quarterly test is going to show us, precisely how the student may have went up or down.
Great. And as we've got a bunch of questions about RTI and how you support individual students with kind of their learning gaps. So could you address that specifically? Are those addressed with one-on-one teachers, through the online platform, through project-based learning? How do you address those RTI issues?
So the RTI, the RTI is we don't necessarily just use it as we need to insert it when a student needs intervention. We use it as that, again, that tier 1 is what we rely on as the foundation for our RTI program. So as sound as your tier 1, your general education program is, the more aligned your pyramid's going to be, and those percentages should land in the right places if your general education curriculum is sound. And we are, of course, we're certainly not perfect, and we are continuously refining, but our goal always is to make sure that general education program and all the components of it and the parts of it successfully serve most of our students. So that does include the initial assessment. It does include standard intervention. So that could mean an FDI session or maybe increased FDI sessions. It could mean a virtual FDI session with our online students. It could mean just one-on-one tutoring virtually or on site with our students. There's a variety of things that fit within that tier 1. Tier 2 is when those things aren't working, when those things still aren't quite moving the needle for that student. And so that could involve maybe requiring the virtual student to come on site, or requiring the student to attend more virtual sessions with the teacher, or offering more intervention curriculum resources. So we may go outside of the online platform that we use and use a reading intervention program. We have some students who are still struggling with reading because they're so far behind. So we use a variety of phonics resources that can be delivered either on-site or virtually. So there's just a variety of ways to hit that tier 2. And then again, tier 3 is usually our special ed population, and we have a variety of what we do, and that may be a completely modified pacing within the content based on what their IEP says. That's so personalized, it just depends. But what we do coupled with their required services is usually how those are served. So I think it always just comes back to strengthening your foundation of your RTI program, which is that tier 1, and then kind of building from there.
Excellent. And then we have some questions around enrolling in your schools. Can you discuss the enrollment process for students to find their way to Method schools? Is it an open enrollment? Is there a lottery? How do students find their way to your Method school?
So currently, we have open enrollment. So, and again, we're almost always enrolling the iFlex students. I rotate. We're not full yet at this point, but that is possible. But certainly on our website, the co-founder has created a very streamlined, easy-to-use enrollment process. So we've tried to make it as user-friendly. I've worked for schools in the past. I've enrolled my daughter in schools in the past. I've worked with parents who've tried to enroll students in the past. And if that's a cumbersome process, it's just not a first experience you want families to have. So we tried to make it as easy as possible. Just on our website in the top right, it's Enroll Now. We enroll through I believe mid-March for our traditional school year. Again, the summer or the next year for Track 1, that enrollment will be ongoing. But within the enrollment process, students are able, or families are able to simply just take pictures of the required documents and submit them as a JPEG and pretty much do the entire thing from their phone in a pretty short period of time. So we try to make that pretty streamlined. Upon the beginning of enrollment, they will get automated emails once they've started the process, and that will include contact information for our staff that can help with the process, or if any questions come up, who they can go to be sure that process is as easy as possible.
Great. We've also had a couple of staffing questions come in, specifically about your student-to-teacher ratio, and then also how you are able to staff that wide range of offerings with the different schedules. So if you could speak to that, that would be great.
Well, it's a creative puzzle of sorts, I will say that for sure. As an independent study school, we are required to adhere to a 25-to-1, which we always maintain. As far as on-site, we also have instructional aides on-site, and so those instructional aides provide support in a variety of areas and help fill some of our gaps with instruction. What we like to do, what we try to aim to do, are a couple of things. Try to be sure our highly qualified teachers are actually teaching. We want those teachers to be supporting students in the subject area for which they were hired. So we want our math teacher to be teaching math. We want our language arts teacher to be teaching writing and so forth. During online time, we have found that time to be the best place for our aides, because our aides go through the training for the platforms, get to know all of the students, and are able to manage that portion of our program pretty well. So then when students are pulled out, they're pulled out to the highly qualified teachers who are delivering instruction in their subject areas and/or projects or science breakout sessions. So that kind of eases up those highly qualified teachers' time, because they couple it, and the daily schedule is written in a way that the instructional aides work as like lab aides. So they're lab aides, and so they can provide some instruction. Many of them, or a couple of them actually, are in the credential program or heading to it. So they have some experience in supporting students, but mainly they act as a lab aide. So that helps immensely. And then some of our teachers not only will teach breakout sessions or FDI sessions, but they also have an online caseload. And so the daily schedule is also written in a way where they can pull away and be available to their online students throughout the day, and then certainly on Fridays. So you get creative. Some teachers have multiple credentials, so that helps. But it's all about creativity and certainly using instructional aids for portions of the program where you can.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Jessica. And I know we've got a couple more specific questions there. So we were not able to answer your question during the session. We will certainly follow up with you guys and get you the information that you need. With that being said, I wanted to move ahead and share a couple of other resources with you guys around additional support for blended learning. So if you have enjoyed listening to Jessica and you're excited to get started with your own program, or maybe incorporate some of these techniques into your existing program, we want to make sure you're aware of our upcoming blended learning events. You can view all the events at the website listed, and the dates there are listed for you. We have a couple coming up right away in October, a blended learning solutions luncheon in California, as well as a webinar that you can join, and then some other blended learning leaders events later on during the year and starting into the next year as well. We also have for you guys some resources that you can download. 5 Steps to Building a Better Blended Learning Program work ebook, which is a great resource for you if you're starting to kind of dip your toe into the space, or if you've heard some ideas that you hadn't thought of before and want to think it through a little bit more. Some excellent resources for you there. 2 websites available for you as well. So make sure that you take a moment, reflect on all the wonderful information that Jessica has shared, make use of these resources, and thank you so much for joining, and I will hand it back to Andrew with an additional thank you to Jessica for sharing the success of the program.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jessica and Molly, for an excellent presentation and Q&A session. It really was extremely informative. Unfortunately, that is about all the time that we have left for today. So just as a reminder, as Molly indicated during the Q&A section, if any of you did ask a question that we did not get to today, someone from the Fuel Education team will follow up to get you some answers. And so as we wrap up, I want to thank Jessica Spolino and Molly Hone again for their excellent presentations. And on behalf of eSchool News, I would also like to thank Fuel Education for its support. One final reminder, we will send out an email to everyone who attended today when the recording of the webinar is ready. So thank you, and this concludes today's webcast. Goodbye.